Well, thank you for joining us on Wavy.com for this web-exclusive Andy Hilton from Recruit757.com. Brian Parsons, I'm Nathan Epstein, and guys, we had one heck of a slate of games. We're talking high school football from last week. And before we look ahead to Region Championship Friday, let's look back at what we saw on last Friday real quick. And Brian, I'm going to start with you because, and Andy, you could chime in with this. Oscar Smith against Lansdowne was a game that maybe some of us thought, because of how high Oscar Smith had been riding.
Well, we're on record as saying that we pretty much thought Oscar Smith could run away with that game.
Right.
That's the game that I covered.
Exactly.
They did not run away with it.
No, they didn't. They needed their defense to actually win the game for them at the end because Lansdowne was in position to take it away from them.
Yeah, and there was so many moments in that game where Lansdowne was so fired up. You see it on the sidelines.
Yep.
Tommy Reeman's son was kind of coaching some of the guys up as well, and they really came to play. They were there to make a statement, but Oscar Smith, with just so much talent, 20-16 to hold on. A Hail Mary at the end that didn't fall for Lansdowne, so it's Oscar Smith that moves on.
So now we have Oscar Smith, Thomas Dale for the region championship game. And Andy, all right.
Thomas Dale defeated Ocean Lakes.
Yes,
Thomas Dale defeated
him,
Ocean Lakes, yes. So what makes this interesting is the fact that Oscar Smith, Thomas Dale, let's just say they have acquainted
There's
with each
a history
There's
there.
a history there.
And the interesting thing is there's only 2 games, but they're big games. And you have to go back to, I believe it was 2008 when Philip Sims, it may have been 2009, so we can discuss that. But Philip Sims was the quarterback. They had a loaded team. They were undefeated, and no other games played on the day that Thomas Dale and Oscar Smith played. They played in a rain with puddles on the field and about 38 to 40 degree weather, and they lost a sloppy game that was very close, and Thomas Dale went on to win the state championship. And to this day, Tiger fans talk about that game.
And still, I mean, I remember, I think it was, they met last year, didn't they? And
2015.
2015 was the last time they met.
Yes.
I remember that things got a little chippy
They
in that
did.
game at the end of that game.
And
so.
Smith won that game 21-3. So at least over the last 20 years, they've met twice. Each team has won one game. There's going to be a lot of passion.
Well, Thomas Dale comes in with 3 losses, so how do you think they stack up against Oscar Smith?
Well, Thomas Dale is going to, they're not one player, but really Chris Tyree is the straw that stirs the drink, so to speak, for Thomas Dale. And we saw that last week early on. He performed extremely well against Ocean Lakes, didn't play the second half, tweaked an ankle, and that's been one of the concerns with him is that he's had some injuries last year. They suffered a lot of quarterback injuries last year. They were supposed to have a good team. This year, Tyree has been down a little bit, on the bench a little bit from time to time. If he's healthy, it's going to be a game. If he's not, you would think that Oscar Smith has a great chance to win it very easily, but again, that's why they play the game.
And waiting in the wings for the winner, Colonial Forge, Westfield.
Well, in Colonial Forge last year, Oscar Smith had to make it past Colonial Forge last year in a game that Colonial Forge in their own stadium thought they had.
Yes.
I mean, Oscar Smith had.
It was won.
It was won. It was done, and then Cameron Kelly came to the rescue and really saved that game in overtime. So
Yes.
you know that if I find it funny that on one side of the bracket you have a team with Oscar Smith, Thomas Dale, Colonial Forge. Really, Oscar Smith has been sort of that demon for
Forge.
For Forge.
Absolutely.
And then on the other side of the bracket is the demon that Oscar Smith cannot seem to get by.
Yes.
That's Westfield.
And that, yeah, like you said, on the other side of the bracket. So if Oscar Smith makes it to the state championship game, which they have every plan to make it there, they're very likely to have to play a Westfield team that has had their number over the last few years.
Anybody in for round 4?
I'm ready to talk about Class 5.
There you go.
There's a big game to talk about at Class 5.
So
go ahead, let's talk about Class 5.
Oh, so all right.
The big one. I mean, come on. This is the most
one everybody's
anticipated
been
game
waiting
of the year.
for.
This is the one.
Salem against Maury, by the way.
So I interviewed both coaches today, both from Salem and from Maury. And what's interesting, Andy, and you can kind of back me up on this, is that people had a sense even before the season, back in the summer,
Yes.
that these two teams were going to meet at this point in the season.
Yes, you had thought, there were some thoughts that Indian River would have something to say, Nansemond River would have something to say, Deep Creek was in the mix, but really it was, all the buzz was Maury Salem and how would this play out. And fortunately for the fans, we're here.
And Brian, you've seen Maury play. You've been to multiple Maury games.
Yeah, and here's everybody talks about Salem's defense.
Yes.
Everybody talks about Maury's high-octane offense. Nobody talks about Maury's defense.
And they're very good.
Maury's defense is pretty good.
Yes.
So I think with the firepower of their offense and their good defense, I lean towards Maury in this one.
Well, and Salem and Maury, so I saw Salem last week in a game that was incredible. I mean, I think it was the finish of the night with Woodside looked like they had that game won. Woodside scores a touchdown with about 1:15 to go. They take a 5-point lead. interesting play, something we didn't have time to show on Friday Night Flights, but a play that was interesting was Woodside goes for the 2-point conversion, logically, because they were only up by 5, so they wanted to go up by 7. And the catch was made in the end zone, and his foot hit the line.
With a toe drag.
With a toe drag. So had that play gone by the way of Woodside, who knows what would have happened. But here we are with Salem and Maury.
And we thought that Woodside-Salem game might be 0-0. At least I think I said that. And it really could have been. But there were some big plays that happened in that game. And I think it's the big play that's going to make the difference between Salem and Maury. And Maury has the big play offense. Yet Salem can do it as well. So it just adds intrigue.
And there was big news on Friday night when we found out that the 4-time state champions, Highland Springs, in Class 5,
Yes.
40-game winning streak is over. They lose to Varina. Varina 10-2 on the year. So we will have a new state champion in Class 5.
Yes.
Everybody thought it was going to be Highland Springs, or at least was going to go through Highland Springs, but they're not even going to be in the region final.
And Varina's no slouch. I had a chance to see them play Lake Taylor, and they absolutely manhandled Lake Taylor in midseason.
58-10.
Yes.
And meanwhile, you talk about Manchester, of course, the defending champion, although
They were in Class 6.
They were in Class 6
Things
last
have been
year.
reclassed.
So,
That happens every couple of years, and because of attendance numbers, Manchester moved down from a 6 to a 5. So they are certainly no slouch. And Varina Manchester will be a heck of a game. The winner of that game plays Salem or Maury.
I was speaking to Maury's head coach today, and he said that it's interesting. I told him about what did he first think when he'd heard the news that Highland Springs had been eliminated, and of course Highland Springs eliminated Maury in the state semifinals the year before.
Yes.
And he actually said something that you would expect a competitor to say, and he said, actually, I'm a little disappointed that it wasn't Maury. That he said I wanted Highland Springs. He said he wanted Highland Springs, because he felt like he had the team to do it. I mean, we're going to have to see if they can get past Salem first, but
Now, from the idea of competitive juice, it's interesting. There were some Highland Springs fans at that Maury game that had Tombstone T-shirts on that had the victims of the teams they had already beaten in previous seasons, and Maury was on the shirt.
Don't put the cart before the horse.
So, and that was last year. So Maury would have come in extremely motivated to win this game. Now, Salem, there's been some talk on social media. I've seen the stuff bouncing around that Salem students, Salem players, at least a Salem student gave the Maury team some bulletin board material that there was going to be a big butt whooping coming, and Salem was going to give it to them.
I mean,
That game's Friday at the,
So-
at the Sportsplex, by
we
the
should
way,
have a
in
packed
case,
house.
in case you're interested in going.
from our standpoint, though, hey, you know what? It's already a huge matchup. It's 12-0 versus 12-0. Why not add a little bit of intrigue to it?
Yes.
Class 4.
Class 4, we have Lake Taylor and Churchland, and I believe the featured player will be a guy named Malik Newton in this one.
Yes. He has gotten hotter as the season has gone on. It's funny, he started off the season as not even the primary back for Lake Taylor, yet when they've needed the yardage, they've needed the scoring, he has provided it. And Churchland and Lake Taylor are Eastern District foes. They played each other already this season. Churchland gave them a pretty good game in the middle of the season. It's going to be interesting to see how the rematch goes.
I think if I'm a Lake Taylor fan, the one thing that concerns me would be this is not the best Lake Taylor defense that they've ever had. They've given up
No.
50 or more points 3 times, and they gave up 49 to Maury. So that's very unusual for a Hank Sawyer team to be that porous on defense. How do you explain that? And does that give Churchland some hope? Because Churchland did score 25 on Lake Taylor earlier in the year.
Yes, they did. And Churchland's offense is not quite as, no offense to Churchland fans, is not a Varina, is not a Maury, but they can put up some points. The challenge is going to be, and this may be the matchup of the game, can Churchland's offense outscore Lake Taylor's offense?
Well, and that's where they would turn to their stud running back, Kenny Gallup Jr. Is he the kind of guy that, I mean, we talk about big players shine in the biggest moments, and none bigger than a chance to get to the state tournament.
And twice, 2 weeks in a row, he's put the team on his back and carried the day for Churchland here in the playoffs.
And Brian, by the way, you forgot one. They allowed 56 against Norview.
Yeah,
against,
that is
against
wild.
In a win.
Norview. In a win, but I mean, Norview, a team that has struggled the last couple years. I mean, where did that one come from?
So if you look at game film, the recipe is out there for how to beat Lake Taylor's defense. If you look at Norview, you look at Varina, you look at Maury.
Yeah,
Can
Norcom
you
put
do
up
it?
56 too. So.
Yeah. So now we go to Class 3, and we have the state champion runner-up in Phoebus, made it all the way to the state title game last year, and a Hopewell team that is yet to lose and really took it to Norcom. So I guess how are we seeing this one go?
Well, with this game being on Saturday, it's a great opportunity for folks in the 757 to go up to Richmond and support Phoebus. They're going to need it. I was there at Hopewell last week to see them top Norcom. They did it in the first half in dry weather. They did it in the rain in the second half. This Hopewell team is for real. Phoebus has a chance to beat them, but they're going to need some support. They're going to need to execute. And I have a feeling that the winner of this game is your state champion. These two teams are that good.
And finally, one more game is Riverheads, 12-0, Sussex Central, local team. They got a challenge in front of them, having to go up against an undefeated.
Absolutely, and Riverheads is a heritage program. They've done a lot of winning. They know how to win. They're at home for this one. All signs point to Riverheads, so Sussex Central has to be the underdog and pull the upset.
All right, let's play Let's Test Andy's knowledge. Riverheads, what's its nickname?
Oh, I have no idea on that one, so you should stump me.
The Riverheads Gladiators.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why I like that name so much.
Riverhead Gladiator. Well, the Riverheads almost sounds like the mascot, but
Yes, that's not alliterative, but
Riverheads Gladiators.
All right, so as we wrap things up here, I guess let's go right down the list real quick. We have some, we don't get a chance to make predictions a whole lot, but let's say, Oscar Smith, Thomas Dale. I'll get both of you. What do we think?
I hate to make predictions because anytime I make a
That's
prediction,
true. With the
somebody
position that
takes
you're
it
in,
as
somebody texts you.
me having a rooting interest in one side versus the other. And I'll tell you, right now, I have no rooting interest for any of these teams. I want to see everybody win. Everybody's going to have to play well. Somebody's got to win or lose. I'll put that on Brian to make some calls
I
here.
say Oscar Smith beats Thomas Dale. I say Maury takes down Salem in a close one. I say Lake Taylor in a close one over Churchland. Let's give it to Phoebus over Hopewell, and the Gladiators go down to Sussex Central.
All right, so you're going all local chalk, so to speak.
Why not root for the home team?
No rooting interest.
I don't want to get any phone calls or nasty emails.
All right, that segment went nowhere fast. All right, so I guess as we wrap things up here, we do have one other local game of interest. I'm going to just switch gears for just 2 seconds.
I wonder what this is going to be.
I have a feeling.
I think we know where this is going.
Who's claiming the
I think we're talking college football.
I think so.
And we're talking an in-state rivalry.
Why not?
Where one team has won 16
15
in a row?
15 in a row.
That's 15, Andy.
Or unless
Okay,
you're
well,
foreshadowing.
unless we're going to count 16. But and again, UVA has their hands full with Virginia Tech, a
Yes,
team
they
that's
do.
pitched 2 shutouts in a row.
Yeah, impressive shutouts.
Yes.
It's a noon game. Nathan's going to be there. He claims he's going to be back in time to shoot high school football games on Friday, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Okay, we'll see. What do you think?
The line was a pick 'em to open, and now at the time of this taping, it's 2.5 points. Virginia Tech by 2.5.
And I'm no homer either way, but I'd take Virginia Tech and give up the points.
Okay.
I'll say you're not going to like this.
No, go for it.
I'll say Virginia Tech 27, UVA 17. Hey, at least they score.
That's true. They
And this is a different team with Bronco Mendenhall. The players have bought in.
Oh, yeah.
It's a true program. They're entrenched. Mendenhall's theories and philosophies are entrenched there at UVA, and it's doing great things for the
It's
program.
been so long since UVA beat Virginia Tech. Who was the quarterback? Matt Schaub?
Matt Schaub. Here's the nugget for you.
Oh, my goodness.
Here's the nugget that I've always said is that Heath Miller has gone through an entire NFL career. He has been retired for I think 2 seasons now, maybe longer than that. He was a